Alright, let's modify some vanilla loot tables. Alright, we find ourselves back in IntelliJ once more, and in this tutorial we're going to be modifying some vanilla loot tables. Alright, well, how does this work? Well, in our tutorial mod package, we're going to right-click a new package called util. I usually put this under the util package. Now, in theory, you could put this under other packages as well, but this is just how I like to organize it. We're going to make a new Java class called ModLootTableModifiers. And then inside of there, we're going to have a few things. So once again, I'll try to copy over piece by piece. So first of all, we have 3 identifiers because we're going to modify those 3 different loot tables. We're going to change the grass loot table, we're going to change the igloo chest loot table, and we're going to change the creeper loot table. So those are the 3 loot tables that we're going to change. How can you get this identifier? How do you know where this is? Well, you can go to the external libraries all the way down to this one, NetMinecraft, Minecraft project, merged, and so on and so on and so on, under the data folder, Minecraft loot_tables, and then here, this is basically what you want to use. So you can see blocks/grass. So if I open the blocks folder, we can actually find the grass JSON file right here. So this is what we're targeting basically. So shouldn't be anything too crazy. So hopefully that should be enough for you to understand how you can then use different identifiers to target different vanilla loot tables to change. Now what we then want is just a public static void method called modify loot tables, for example. There we go. And then we're going to start with the first one. So once again, this is going to look a little bit crazy, but don't worry about it. So we're going to have a loot table events. So this one right here, .modify, .register. And then, then we can start typing in resource, and you can see it should suggest to us resource manager, loot table, and so on and so on. So we can then just autocomplete this with tab. Then we're going to make open curly brackets. The closing curly brackets should generate automatically, and this should be fine. So there should be no errors present at this moment. And then here we can basically, add stuff to the loot tables. Because we're using the modify, we're basically going to add stuff to it, or, we're going to change it. And the way that we can do it is by the following way. So this is going to look a little bit crazy, but don't worry, you're going to get through this. So first of all, we're going to basically add the eggplant seeds to grass. So I'll copy over the if statement, and as I've said, it's going to look a little bit crazy over here, but don't worry about it. So this is actually going to be the table builder instead of the supplier. That's going to be okay. So there we go. So also, all of the code is, of course, as always, available to you in the description below. Get a repository and individual gist as well. And then let's go through this. So here, we're basically building a loot table inside of the code. So this is very similar to the loot table that we've seen, right here, right? So where we're building a pool, and then we're building some entries, and we have one role here, and we have different types. And this is pretty much what we're doing here as well. You can see we have a pool here, and then we have one role in this case, and then we have a random chance over here. So when we break a grass block, so this grass block, by the way, is the grass that grows on top of the block, right? The actual, not the block that can also be dirt, the grass that grows on top, basically. And from that, if we break it 35% of the time, we're going to get a eggplant seed. So this is pretty much how this works, and you can see we're getting either 1 or 2. So this is this count loot function. Now going through the entire loot builder would probably be a 3-hour tutorial, which is just going to be absolutely too much and too crazy. What I suggest is you play around with this. How would you play around with this? Well, you can try the following. You can try the conditionally call over here, and then you have something that is called a loot condition. Now, if we middle mouse button click on this, you can see this is an interface. So what we can do is we can click on it, press Control H, and you can see these are all of the loot conditions that you can use. The way to use a loot condition, we're going to see that in just a moment. When we add the last modification there, we're going to actually see match to loot condition over there. So that is one thing that you can do, and then the rest you can just play around with. Like I said, this is a little bit more advanced, probably for sort of intermediate Java knowledge should probably be required for this, because you're also messing with vanilla stuff, so who knows. The next one is going to be the igloo structure, and you can see already the pattern that emerges, right? You can see we're basically just asking, hey, is the ID that we're currently trying to modify the same as the ID that we've specified over here? And if it is, then we want to modify it. That is pretty much all that there's to it. So for the igloo, what we're going to do is we're just going to add the 8-ball to the igloo. So in every igloo, we're going to actually have an 8-ball spawn. And then last but not least, we're going to add the creeper here. So this is going to be, it's going to drop an eggplant, but only, you can see this conditionally, only if we actually kill it with a golden sword. Very important. So only drops if a golden sword is used, but then it should be dropped 100% of the time. So this hopefully will also work. That's going to be very interesting. And that is basically how you do it. So you can see match loot table condition.builder. You're going to need an item predicate in this case, an item predicate builder here, and then you should be fine. As I've said, it can be quite complicated to build these loot tables. It's not as straightforward as you might think, but once again, if you just play around with this a little bit, you should be fine. Right, so hopefully this is kind of understandable, and then what we need to do is we need to call the method over here inside of our onInitialize method. So we're just going to say ModLootTableModifiers that modify loot tables. And that should be pretty much all that we need to do. So let's go into the game and see if it works. Or if I was back in Minecraft, so let's just see when I break the grass, and there we go, we already have some eggplant seeds right there, and you can see we're not getting them all the time, but 35% of the time is basically when we expect this to drop. So there we go. Let's see if we can also get 2 of them to drop at the same time, because we've set it to either 1 or 2. So let's see. And there we go. We actually got 2 at the same time. That is the modified loot table of the grass. Or let's take a look at the igloo next over here. So let's just see. Oh, we actually have to go through water. That's also going to be okay. So there we are. And you can see the 8-ball has been successfully added to this loot table as well. Right, for whatever reason, the creeper does not work, so of course I'm using the golden sword here, and I'm trying to kill it with the golden sword, and you can see a eggplant has not been dropped, so that is definitely something that is, something's going wrong there. So let's take another look at that as well. All right, so hard cut after here, and I have figured it out how to do it, so we can actually see this, right? Gold sword, and if I kill the creeper with it, an eggplant will drop. I'll show you how it works. It is actually vastly more complicated, sadly, but that is sometimes how it's going to be. Right, so this is now the condition. We actually need an entity property loot condition over here, looking at the killer. So we need to look at the property of the killer, and we want to look at the equipment property. So we need to make another builder over here that has an item predicate builder. So you can see it's absolute madness. But this is what I've said about this particular, loot pool builder and stuff. It can be sometimes very, very complicated, and you just have to play around with it for a while until you actually get what you immediately want. But that is basically how this would work. And this also concludes this tutorial right here. Hope you found this useful and you learned something new, and I'll see you all in the next tutorial. So, yeah.